One of ReZero's most interesting side stories that gives us heavy insight on Reinhardt and the Estrella family is Once Upon a Time in Lagunica, in which we follow Roswaal reflect on an event that took place over 14 years ago within the ReZero world, in which at the age of 14, Roswaal was coronated as the head of the Mathers family. And while visiting the capital, he is essentially robbed, but is helped by an unexpected ally. That being this guy right here, Marcus Gildark, who at the time was the leader of a group called the Brotherhood, which was a rebel group that opposed discrimination. After this, Roswaal met with this guy right here, Russell Fellow, who you may remember from season 1 of the anime, in which Russell explains the beef and the history between two groups within the royal capital, that being the Brotherhood, which I already mentioned, and another group, that being the Golden Wing faction, a group founded by Farid in prison, which was focused on patriotism and nobilism within the country of Lagunica. Anyways, I'm getting a bit off topic. Going back to the main point, that being after these events, we meet Reinhard and his father, Heinkel, in which we see a scene where Heinkel is arguing with Marco, begging him to essentially rejoin the Royal Knights because he had left, in which we see Roswaal essentially bait Marcos and confront him into saying his hate for aristocrats and the rich, in which after all of this arguing goes down, we see Heinkel re-meet with Reinhard, in which this child version of Reinhard looks at Heinkel and asks him, would he be happy if Marcos rejoined the Royal Knights? In which Heinkel responds that he would be happy if he rejoined. And in this instance, Reinhard states, I received it. And from that point forward, Marcos was back within the Royal Knights. Which, if you hadn't realized, Reinhard wished for a divine protection in which he could use manipulation to get Marcos back into the Royal Knights, in which that worked. And that's why we see Marcos within season 1 of the anime as the vice captain of the Royal Knights. Reinhard's deep devotion to his father and his love for him is honestly one of the most underrated factions of ReZero, and is one that is hard to see on the surface level and that you need to read the side stories to really get a grasp of, in which a lot more context is added to the Estrella family crisis. But this side story really goes to show how dangerous Reinhard truly could be if put into the wrong hands, and is why the country has a literal rule called the Reinhard Law. They actually released a sequel to this exact side story. So if you want to see me talk about that and more of the most important ReZero side stories that you should be reading, check out my YouTube. And anyways, yeah, peace.